Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I'm Tony Gerdeman here, as always, with Tom Orr. Tom, how's it going?
Good, Tony. Good. I thought you might string the power pause out a little bit more because we still have, 3.5 hours before the start of official events here today. Got here very early and was like, oh, there's no one here. Like the security guard kind of gave me a look when I walked up earlier, like, well, what are you doing?
What's in the backpack?
Sir, you know we're on Pacific time, right? Yes. We just tend to get places early.
Yeah, no, they may be on Pacific time. We are on your time here at good old 8:02 in the morning out west, and we've got plenty to talk about. We will preview the day, just so you guys are aware. Today is day 2 of the Big Ten Media Days. It will start at 11:30 our time, 2:30 your time, with PJ Fleck, who will talk for 15 minutes, then Northwestern head coach David Braun, then Luke Fickell, then Dan Lanning, then Jed Fish, then James Franklin, and that'll end at 1 o'clock, and then that's when all of the breakouts of the coaches and the players start, and that'll go until 5 o'clock our time. And then, Tom, when that is done, around 8 p.m. Eastern, we will be back live for Buckeyes tomorrow morning with how many days until the season right now?
It was 38 on today's show. So on as of Wednesday, it's 38 days. So on the show tonight, since it's tomorrow morning, it'll be 37 days.
We're getting there.
It is getting there, yeah, for sure.
And then also you should just add to the countdown 7 days until camp opens, which is pretty crazy. You used to have with Big Ten Media Days, you'd have like 2 weeks, at least like 2 weeks before camp started. And now it's just like you get home and you got to start packing up the recorders and the cameras. Like, what do I need for camp? And we, of course, we'll be there for the first 3 days as well, and whatever else they allow us to see. So I'm looking forward to it. And of course, throw your questions in there. We'll get to them as we can. Super chats, regular chats, whatever you got. We need to address everything.
And there is a lot to address because I was thinking about this. We always talk about this as the unofficial start of the college football season because it feels like as soon as you're here, you have all this stuff to talk about. There's more that we get at these events than we could possibly get through between now and the start of camp. And then as soon as the start of camp goes, then we're just talking about camp and we're not talking about this stuff anymore. But there's so much information that comes out of this. You get to talk to so many people, on camera, off camera, all that kind of stuff. You end up with a ton of information. And so we are going to do our best to put out as much of that as we possibly can in as many different forms as we can, writing and video and here, live shows where we can just kind of data dump as much as we can of it to you. So there's definitely a lot of stuff to talk about. From the Ohio State end of things, what was the most interesting thing? Because I have been putting together a bunch of shows about all the stuff that Ohio State said about Michigan, all the stuff Ohio State said about Penn State, all the stuff Ohio State said about Texas, all the stuff Ohio State said about Oregon. And then there's also all the internal stuff. And then there's all the big picture stuff, NIL and recruiting and the house settlement and all that kind of stuff. The college football playoff. I mean, and that's just from the Ohio State side of things, not even the other 5 teams we talked to yesterday.
Right. Well, I'll start with something local, and let's start with Ohio State football. And I didn't get to talk to any of the players yesterday, but going through and listening and seeing with the conversation, Sonny Styles talking about Matt Patricia, working with him, and Matt Patricia told him, you're at the point where you're smart enough to know exactly what you're doing, but now I want you to figure out what the offense is doing. So I think that's interesting. Like, start seeing formations and understanding shifts and where the ball is going. So that's something that he's been challenged to do. And I think you're going to see the best Sonny Styles you've ever seen. I think you saw some of it in the Texas game where he had two sacks, 3 tackles for loss, forced fumble. And then he also said that he and Arvell Reese are probably the 2 most athletic linebackers in the country, and that Peyton Pierce brings some physicality to the position, which is like, and he's like, not that we don't already have it.
I was going to say, I saw Sonny Styles hit people last year. It seemed like there was plenty of physicality there. But.
So I think I come away with some interesting thoughts on the linebackers. Not that we didn't expect them to be. I expect them to be very good. We talked about Peyton Pierce being what Arvell Reese was last year, what Cody Simon was 2 years before that. I think Matt Patricia's going to find ways to get all three of those guys on the field together.
Yeah, and I'm sure James Laurinaitis would be in favor of 3 linebackers on the field together. And you've got guys who are a little bit more dynamic, who can do some different stuff. Sonny Styles, if you had to throw Sonny Styles into coverage a little bit, like they used to throw Pete Werner on, Pete Werner would rotate back and should just be the deep safety. Not a lot, because if you know that's coming, you can take advantage of it. But he's also athletic enough that you can, if it's a surprise and they don't know it's coming, you can get away with that. You can also have Sonny Styles rushing off the edge, like you can,
and Arvell Reese,
You have guys where, Jim Knowles used to talk about Sonny Styles as a Swiss Army knife or a secret weapon, and I think you're going to see him continue to be used in a bunch of different ways. Just that versatility makes you unpredictable. And they've got that this is an incredible luxury to have someone like that on the second level, to have someone like Caleb Downs on the third level, where
he's a fourth linebacker.
You want to rush Caleb Downs off the edge? Sure, fine. You want to have Caleb Downs be your deep safety? That's fine. You want to have Caleb Downs be your in the box safety? Yeah, that's fine. What do you want to do? He can do it. And you have the luxury of having a linebacker like that, the luxury of having a safety like that. That is something that most teams do not have. But if you look at Matt Patricia and what they did with the Patriots over the years, they were great at finding, like, what's the thing you can do, what are the things that you can do, and just putting you in a position to succeed. Having that flexibility allows Ohio State to be complicated for the opponent without necessarily being complicated themselves, which is really that's your best possible sort of scenario as a defense.
And as T13 says, Gunnar Helm remembers Sonny Styles.
That was a hit and a half. Yeah.
So, and he's got the ability to cover as well. Caleb Downs talked about what his expectations for himself this year. And he's like, I expect to be multiple like I was last year, and there's no reason not to just play him around. And him being able to play the middle of the field, the intermediate where the linebackers would be, then also allows you to move the linebackers around and maybe get them after the quarterback more. So from what I've been told, like, the linebackers are going to get after it this year. I don't know if that means it's not going to be constant blitzing or whatever, but right. I think you're going to see some stuff off the edge as well. I think there's some versatility and some length and size that they love with those guys.
Well, and you can't just do the same thing over and over and over again, because there is a counter to anything you want to do. If whatever defense you're in, there's an offense, the passing game, there are zone beaters and there are man beaters. If you can't always be in zone, you can't always be in man. If you're always in man, guess what? You're going to see a bunch of drag routes and and mesh routes, and that you're going to have problem. And if you're constantly in zone, well, there's easy zone beaters as well. You have to be unpredictable, but having that, having those guys who can do so many different things allows you to do that. I do want to give out a shout out to our buddy Mika. Hope you are feeling better soon. Don't always hate to see that, but hope you are feeling well soon. And we will. I have already seen some good questions in there. We'll star those, and we'll come back to those a little bit later on. So go ahead and throw your questions in or comments in there, and we will get to as many of those as we can a little later on.
Caleb Downs is also very high on Max Clare, and so I think Sonny Styles was as well. Just talking about how Max Clare is an elite route runner, and he's also physical. He's not just a pass-catching tight end, a receiving tight end. He'll also get after it. And Caleb Downs talked about how he and Lathan Ransom were the guys. We were pretty much responsible for getting him here, telling Keenan Bailey about him, and that he was the best guy they faced last year, and he's the best guy they saw on film and preparation. And I don't know, maybe we need to start talking about him more. I remember, so I've been doing this top 10 Ohio State playmakers. I've had to take a break daily.
Why have you been busy?
Yeah, I've been a little busy, but counting down, and I think I had Max Clare at maybe 5, and Ross Fulton said I might have him at like 3 or 4. And that's when you're talking about the Ohio State passing game and the running back that James Peoples is and will be, to have Max Clare. I don't know. I'm expecting the top end is kind of what Cade Stover did. That's what I'm expecting. But I'm not expecting a Tyler Warren season. But like, what are the odds that he's a 60 catch guy?
Probably not. I think 10 to 15%. That just seems very high. And it's not that he can't do it. We know he can do it. It's just Jeremiah Smith remains on the team. Carnell Tate remains on the team. Brandon Innes remains on the team.
Mylan Graham,
Bryson
Porter,
Rogers, Quincy Porter,
the running backs
and James Peoples and CJ Donaldson. And also they're going to want to run the ball some. So I think you run into a number of footballs problem rather than you saw what Max Clare could do without a lot of other tools around him. Even being kind of the number one target that the defense is focusing on, he still caught 50 whatever passes it was last year. So yeah, he certainly could do it. I don't think he will, but I don't think that's a Max Clare issue as much as a number of footballs.
You go back. We'll get to the super chat, but did you go back to the Jim Tressel thing where it's every time I'm throwing to the tight ends, I'm not throwing to Santonio Holmes and Ted Ginn, Anthony Gonzalez. But granted, I don't think he had Max Clare. No offense to Louis Arizari.
Yeah, right. But, yeah. Let's get to the super chat from Ryan Dawes. Did you guys see Lorenzo Sr. play? Does Sonny have any similarity to his dad's styles? See what he did there of play. I actually asked Sonny yesterday about his brother and his dad, and he talked about the fact that they have the luxury of sitting down because, of course, his older brother Lorenzo is also going to be the nickel on the defense, and he talked about the fact that he's had the luxury of being able to sit down and watch stuff with his dad, and he played in the NFL, knows what that's like, and he's just been a great resource for him. I don't know how similar they are in terms of players. There's a certain amount of you look at a mid 90s linebacker and they're wearing those enormous shoulder pads and you just pulled up a picture and the shoulder pads look like they're about 4 times the size of the current ones. But guys are more athletic now, and it's not just he's more athletic than his dad. It's just every linebacker now is running faster than linebackers then because there have been enormous improvements in training. So the game is a little different. What you're doing as a linebacker in a Big Ten where everyone's lining up in the I formation and running it up the A gap, that's a very different Big Ten and a very different linebacker job than you have now, where you might be, like I said, he might be dropping back into deep coverage. He might be rushing the passer on the next play. He might be covering a tight end. He might be covering a back out of the backfield. Like, you're doing a little bit of everything. It's not just like, well, you got to watch out for the fullback, or they might give it to the fullback, or they might pitch it out to the tailback, and he might. It's such a different game that even if they were identical people, between the changes in training and the changes in what they have to do because of what the offense is doing, it's kind of hard to compare them, don't you think?
Well, and he was a senior my freshman year, so I did get to watch him, and of course I watched him in high school as well. He was a 2-time All Big Ten linebacker. He was listed at 6'1", 245, but here's the other thing that makes him look bigger: the big shoulder pads. He also wears number 90.
Yes.
So good luck getting any linebacker today. Good luck getting Sonny Styles to wear 90 or anything in the 90s. Back then it was cool. It was okay. But Lorenzo Styles was a middle linebacker. He was tough and physical. Left after his junior year. Sonny, he's probably 235, 240. He'll probably cut a little bit of weight, but he's 6'3", 6'4".
Right.
Bigger, faster athlete, longer. Sonny in that era would have been an outside linebacker like a Craig Powell who played at that same time, where you maybe do a little bit of pass rushing, little Niall Diggs type of stuff. But yeah, they're certainly different, but like there's a lot of traits from Lorenzo Sr. that Sonny has, the physicality and things like that.
Yeah.
But the diagnosing and all that stuff, like anybody can get better at that. And Lorenzo was pretty good. He was fun to watch.
He was the one that went to the Falcons, and Craig Powell went to the Browns, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, he was a 3rd-round pick, and Powell was a 1st-round pick because of the athletic profile.
Yeah. And that's a local family. They're from Pickerington. That is just an awesome family. Dad, mom, both kids, just the easiest people to root for in the world. Just a phenomenal family.
And I'm just looking, Sonny Styles was a 2nd-team All Big Ten pick last year, so he will not be able to match his father.
And if you missed last night's show, if you go back and watch it, you can watch me taking psychic damage from realizing that this is the 4th year for Sonny Styles at Ohio State. Like, what? How? He was supposed to be a senior in high school. I don't understand how that's possibly the case. But yeah, so there you go. There is there's the Styles family breakdown. But yeah, I am expecting big things from Sonny Styles, and I did get a chance to ask Sonny about his brother Lorenzo, and he's going to be sounds like the starting nickel this year, replacing Jordan Hancock, and just he called him a freak athlete, one of the most athletic nickels in the draft this upcoming year. Said he can cover, can run with anybody, very smart, just studies the game very well, can do just about anything you ask for him as a nickel, super versatile, and has great confidence in himself. So, and he said that's what you need when you're playing defensive back. You got to believe that you're the best and that no one can catch a ball on you. And sounds like he's kind of got the whole thing. And as I think I said on last night's show, if you can get one brother to say something nice about another brother, like man, he must really mean it.
And remember, like he spent his first 2 years a receiver at Notre Dame,
yeah.
And then so it takes a while to build up that confidence. And Ohio State always liked him as a defensive back, but now you're finally, I think you're finally going to see him at his best. But it's always interesting to me to see somebody accept and embrace the nickel position.
Mm-hmm.
I came here to play corner.
Yeah.
And now it's like, well, let me show you something else. I know you wanted.
What can we do to get you into this nickel position
exactly?
Today?
Let's talk about it. We'll throw in the undercoating, but you have to embrace it, and I think it's easier now because it is such a specific and important role. There's like no shame to it. Now, I mentioned on a show a few months ago when I asked Denzel Burke at the combine, does anybody talk to you about nickel? And he's like, yeah. It's like there's still some
I
don't know what's some badness to it or some stigma, but once you embrace it and you realize what Jordan Hancock did for this team last year, like you have to respect that. And Lorenzo Styles saw it. He was the dime last year. He was the backup nickelback. He understands the importance that he can have in this defense.
Yeah, and we talked, I think, yesterday about Jordan Hancock being one of the most underrated players from last year's team, because it feels like you look at the guys who left last year's team and who are they going to have to replace this year, and very quickly you'll say here JT Tuimoloau and Jack Sawyer, and you'll hear Denzel Burke, and Jordan Hancock played a very, very big role, and Denzel Burke had the bad game against Oregon, but was really very good other than that. Davis and Igbinosun got attention for good stuff and bad stuff, depending on, he had the incredible interceptions against Penn State, but then every time someone threw a flag, everyone kind of went, oh boy, here we go again. And then Jordan Hancock was just kind of like quietly extremely good, and he didn't get positive attention. He didn't get negative attention. It just kind of, he was just sort of there and always doing his job at a very high level. And that's not an easy thing to replace. But as you said, boy, the third year it's the fifth year for Lorenzo Styles in college, but only the third year as a defensive back. And it feels like this is now his time to shine.
He played more snaps than Denzel Burke did last year, Jordan Hancock.
Yeah.
I mean, just a few, but he was, I think he was like fifth or sixth on the team in snaps. Mm-hmm. So there's no stigma there. You are an important piece of the defense. Now, Tom, Lorenzo Styles as a senior. Lorenzo Styles Sr. as a senior.
He's not listed as Lorenzo Styles on the 1994 stats, which is weird.
132 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, no sacks. Sonny Styles last year, 100 tackles, 10.5 tackles for loss, and I think 6 sacks. So still 132 tackles back then. That's about what you expected from your starting Ohio State middle linebacker because they were running the ball. And, of course, no sacks because Matt Finkus and Mike Vrabel were taking them all.
Yeah, boy, and this is just remembering some guys. Like this is guys could just stand around and just name old football players. Lorenzo Styles, Marlon Kerner, Craig Powell, Matt Finkus, Mike Vrabel, Tim Patillo, Greg Belisari, Sean Springs, Tito Paul, Derek Mason. He's not listed there, but for some reason Tito Paul's name reminds me of him. Luke Fickell. We'll be talking to him a little later on. Ryan Miller, Preston Harrison, Randall Brown, Dennis Magg. That Bonhouse, there's a good one. All right, this is interesting from John Dowd. I've got a feeling nickel is Jermaine Matthews. Maybe I'm wrong. I mean, you may see that a little bit. I think they're going to. I feel like your outside corners are Davis Igbinosun and Jermaine Matthews, and maybe Aaron Scott really comes on. Maybe Devin Sanchez really comes on, and or maybe you just move him inside occasionally. But I'm expecting Matthews to be one of the outside corners, aren't you?
I am, but let's remember Jermaine Matthews in 2024 spent the entire spring at nickel.
Yeah.
So they know he can do that. They also know he can do the outside thing. I guess it just depends on what are their best three corners if we're calling a nickel a corner. So like, are they better with Devin Sanchez or Aaron Scott on the field than with Lorenzo Styles Jr. on the field? I'm expecting Jermaine Matthews to be outside. If he's inside, will we be shocked? Well, we've seen it before, but if he's inside, that says a lot more to me about the other two outside guys, like whether it's Aaron Scott or Devin Sanchez, that they want to get those guys on the field, and they can't. They also obviously want Jermaine Matthews on the field.
Yeah, it's a best 11 situation. You know, we talk about the best 5 on the offensive line. You figure out your best 5, and then you figure out where those 5 pieces go, where how they can fit together. It's kind of best 11 or best 3 in terms of corners, best 5 in terms of defensive backs, and it might be best 2-ish, or it might be a little bit more situational with safeties as well. Like that sounds like that's still very much an open question in terms of who's going to play. You know, Caleb Downs is going to be one of them. Who, you know, is it going to be one or both of Malik Hartford and McClain on the back end there?
Well, and they'll move. I mean, Jermaine Matthews will play some nickel this fall camp.
Oh, yeah, for sure, yeah.
So the dangerous thing is if he's there the first day and then it's everybody's there watching. Oh, yeah. So then that's what it's become. And then the next day he's outside and you're like, well, what the heck, man?
The one-day camp stories are always great. I was going through the Caleb Downs transcript, and he was asked about playing on offense, and I was like, oh, yeah, the Caleb Downs is going to play running back day, when Ryan Day just kind of like mentioned it offhand, and everyone went, blah, and then nothing ever came.
Marvin Harrison returning punts at practice became one of those things. Yeah. I'm fascinated to see what happens with Caleb Downs and Jalen McClain and Malik Hartford. And I kind of wonder if it's just going to be one of those things, because we know Caleb Downs is going to move around. So when he's at free safety, Jalen McClain is in the game at strong safety. When he's at strong safety, then is it Malik Hartford in free safety. So is it going to be one of those things where Caleb Downs has 800 snaps on the season and Hartford and McClain have 400 each type of thing?
It could be then you kind of fall into being a little bit more predictable. If you're, if every time Malik Hartford's in there, that means that Downs is your in the box safety, then what Jim Knowles called the bandit. Then you're getting a little more predictable, and you're tipping something to some degree. So everyone kind of has to be cross-trained, and this is true of this is why they have guys work outside receiver and slot, even if they're mostly going to be in one spot or the other, because you want to be able to do a little bit of everything. So that's one of those things that you'll hear lots of coaches talking about. And great point here from Doug. Go ahead.
Yeah, Aaron Scott and Devin Sanchez should play. I think they will play. And Bryce West isn't a slouch. I expect Bryce West to be the dime, to be what Lorenzo Styles was last year, which means he's the backup nickel, and he's done at Glenville. He played outside, he played inside, he played free safety. Like, he would just be like the deep guy and keep everything in front of you, go make plays when the ball's in the air. So that's stuff that they want this nickel to do, to be able to play wherever and also drop back and play safety. So he's got some experience doing that, and he may be the fastest Buckeye on the team. So there's a role for him.
Jeremiah Smith, we heard from both. Well, I think we sort of indirectly heard from Jeremiah Smith, he said he didn't want to brag about who won all the races on the team, but Ryan Day talked about that I think as well, just that he's first in everything he does. So I don't know if Bryce West is the fastest on the team. He's, I guess, in the conversation for the fastest on the team.
Can you imagine
of people born here on planet Earth, he may be the fastest on the team.
Let's talk a little bit about Jeremiah Smith and the way he's watching his weight.
Oh, yeah, same.
Because I think he said he's at 225 now and wants to play at 223, and he was up to he was working out, and Nick was like, "Hey, stop! What did you have to eat today?" And because he was looking, I guess, a little puffy. He was up at 228 pounds, and
same.
Jeremiah was like, "I had some oatmeal," and Nick's like, "Okay, we gotta watch out, And we had the question yesterday. about is there any concern that Jeremiah Smith gets as big as David Boston or something happens like that and can't handle the weight? I think you're okay.
Yeah.
I don't think Mick's going to allow that because one more oatmeal and you're out of here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I think that's a great example of how closely monitored all of this stuff is. That has always been you've heard about guys have, I've got to cut weight, or, the guys come in a little heavy and they have goals that they want to cut weight, or guys who the inverse of that, where Javante Jean-Baptiste is always the example I think of, where he came in and was at like 208 and they're like, that's great. You're not going to play until you're at least 240. And so he just was eating peanut butter sandwiches. Like he would just like get up in the middle of the night and eat peanut butter sandwiches to just try and put weight on.
Nicolas Petit Frere.
Oh,
all of the French guys.
We have to ask Max LeBlanc.
Are you on an 8,000 calorie diet too?
Are you on the croque monsieur diet, or how many croissants? They manage all this stuff so closely, but now they also have the catapult stuff where they're measuring how do they maintain their speed throughout practice? How many, what is the amount of running that they've done? Have they, there's like load management stuff in there. Does their performance fall off at a certain point? Why does that happen? All of this stuff is managed at such an incredibly minute level. And that's not just, we got to, we're going to keep a close eye on Jeremiah Smith because he's a really important player. They're doing this for everyone. And it's just the amount of detail that goes into this. They have a nutritionist, Kayla Olson. Individual players have their own individual. It's not just like,
you take the safety food.
Yeah.
You take the running back food.
Like I remember in the early 2000s, the pre-Mike Barwis days for the Michigan program, when people were complaining that like their plan to beef up their defensive linemen was just eat more pizza. Like we are light years past that.
Paul Brown is famous for like creating a whole bunch of football stuff that is still in play today because the advancement of the game. I wonder what he would do with like all of this spreadsheet stuff. Like this would be first, it would take him a little while to like understand Excel.
What's a spreadsheet?
And what's a report? But I think he would have loved, because he's the guy that invented the 40-yard dash and things like that to see how well you wanted the fastest guys to be able to cover a punt. So it's like, let's run 40 yards because that's the average length of a punt. And your fastest guys would cover that. That's back when, Tom, the punt was the most important play in sports, practically.
Sir, we may be in Nevada, but this is still Big Ten country this week, so you watch your mouth when you're talking about punting.
Kirk Ferentz is tomorrow, I believe.
I was walking around. There's a video that you can find on our YouTube channel. I think it went up this morning, a behind-the-scenes video where I'm walking around, just kind of letting you see everything you don't get to see normally around here. Like you see the guys at the podium, whatever, but like letting you see like what is it actually like to be here. And they have all the bowl trophies, but they also have all the individual trophies. And I'm walking around like, sure, Heisman Trophy, Biletnikoff Trophy. And I saw a bunch of stuff, and I hadn't seen the Ray Guy Trophy. I'm like, oh, come on, you can't have a Big Ten event without the Ray Guy. And it was there, don't worry. So the Ray Guy Trophy is in the house.
Did you kiss the toe?
Who are you talking to? Come on. Got to get it before Kirk Ferentz does. So you want to hit some of the questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay, let's hit some of the questions. All right. TE13 wants to know if we are staying all 3 days. Yes, we are staying all 3 days. Day one was
yesterday,
but that was like really, there are 6 teams each day. Day one was really the Ohio State day. And you kind of think of the Big Ten right now as kind of like there's 5 teams that are sort of at the top, and Kirk Cignetti is now safely out of state, so I can say that and not include Indiana in that group. But Indiana was here, Illinois was here, so those are teams that are college football playoff contenders. But really, you look at the crowds around the people, and it's the Ohio State day. Today there's 6 more teams here, and the stars of the show are going to be Penn State and Oregon. It's also Washington, it's also Wisconsin. So plenty of stuff to talk about today. And then on Thursday, that is going to be Michigan Day and USC Day. So there's going to be plenty.
And UCLA Day.
And where do they play? Where are they from?
Los Angeles, which is in California.
I think I heard about that last year. Adam Baker says, starting quarterback odds for OSU for the Texas game. Does Lincoln have a real shot, or is this just coach speak?
I always say that, yes, he has a legit shot, because if he performs better than Julian Sayin, then he's going to get it. Now, does he have a legit shot to perform better than Julian Sayin? I mean, everybody talks very highly of Julian Sayin and his quick release and this and that, and how advanced he was as a freshman. Chip Kelly could go on and on about. He would talk about Julian Sayin almost in the same breath as he would talk about Jeremiah Smith in terms of their maturity and their advancement and their understanding. So that's hard to ignore. Lincoln Kienholz is a little more experienced, but the experience 2 years ago, I don't value as much as the experience last year. And that was Julian Sayin last year. He beat out Lincoln Kienholz last year to be the number 3 quarterback. So, and he did that as a true freshman. So why wouldn't he do that as a second-year guy? But if Julian doesn't perform well in camp, then he may still win the job, because Lincoln is not performing well either. But yeah, I think he's real shot or shot.
I think that right now my view is that Julian Sayin is ahead. Julian Sayin was ahead last year, despite coming in, being kind of at least a half a year behind. So my assumption is that it's Julian Sayin, but that the issue right now is not that it's super unclear who it's going to be. It's much more, you gotta hit a certain threshold. You've got to, you have to be able to, you're doing the testing at the NFL Combine, you got to hit a certain number of those little slat things on the vertical jump. And neither of them is jumping quite high enough to hit the number that they need to, just in terms of their overall play and all that kind of stuff. Ryan Day sounded like he was happy with a lot of the leadership pieces and that kind of stuff. But what he said is, when the locker room knows, and when the locker room knows, that's when you kind of have a decision. And it sounds like, these are both guys who are very well respected. These are both guys who the coaching staff likes a lot. These are both guys who are really, really good athletes. He went on and on about what an incredible athlete Lincoln Kienholz was. He's like a 4 handicap golfer, was a Major League Baseball prospect, can windmill dunk on the basketball court.
All-state basketball guy, all-state baseball guy.
It's just one of those people he's an incredibly nice kid, but one of those people you're just like, you son of a, just the kind of people that are just good at everything. Like Justin Fields was like that. Yeah. Justin Fields started playing golf and immediately was basically a scratch golfer. Like, what? How is that possible?
Now I see why people play it. It's so easy.
Yes. Yeah. Not frustrating at all. You've got 2 guys who I think are absolutely can lead Ohio State to a college football playoff caliber quarterbacks. And it's just a matter of, that's not necessarily the standard at Ohio State. The standard is a little higher than that. So who's going to get there? In terms of odds that, starting quarterback odds.
I got a number in my head. Let's see what you say.
80%, 85%.
I was at 80-20.
Yeah, yes. 80. Yeah, 80. I think that's about right. We saw 2 years ago in the 2023 camp. All year we said Kyle McCord. It's going to be Kyle McCord. Almost certainly going to be Kyle McCord. Devin Brown was in the mix. Devin Brown was there, but Kyle McCord was consistently a little ahead. There was a week during fall camp where Devin Brown kind of took the lead to a certain degree, and then it went back to Kyle McCord again. And, my assumption is, if Lincoln Kienholz has a couple good weeks to start fall camp and is ahead of Julian Sayin, absolutely it could be it could be Lincoln Kienholz's job. But going into camp, I think Julian Sayin is ahead, and it would take, if he's leaving probably at this point based on the entirety of the body of the work. So Lincoln Kienholz would have to really almost kind of leapfrog there to win the job.
I view it kind of like a Mortal Kombat Street Fighter type of game where you've got the health bars.
I was going to say, we're talking about some significant injuries potentially.
Where Julian Sayin's health bar is higher than Lincoln Kienholz. So Lincoln Kienholz is going to have to do a lot of work to get Sayin's health bar below his.
There's been some disagreement on the comments on who was the one who hit Arch Manning really hard. I believe it was Lathan Ransom. There was someone suggested Arvell Reese. Someone suggested Sonny Styles. Sonny Styles had the hit on Gunnar Helm, the tight end. I believe it was Lathan Ransom who hit Arch Manning and forced that fumble on like the one play where.
But it was not a fumble, right? His knee was down.
It was not a fumble by like 2 frames of video. It was not a fumble by only the most technical definitions. The ball got knocked out, put it that way, and Doug saying, the Texas players remembering how the Buckeyes hit. Yeah, I mean, that there have been several over the years college football playoff games that we've seen where it's like, man, that was, even by the standards of high-level college football, that was a physical game. I think back to the Fiesta Bowl against Clemson in 2019, where it was like, man, whoever is coming out of this game, LSU got a bye against a crappy Lincoln Riley Oklahoma team, and then the Clemson and Ohio State just absolutely beat the snot out of each other for 3 hours. And that was the national championship was really not a fair fight after that. But yeah, that was definitely that Texas game. There was that Ohio State defense last year could hit. You look at the hit in that game. You look at Nico Iamaleava's helmet. I mean,
they broke 2 helmets on him.
Yeah,
cracked 2 helmets.
Yeah.
The 2014 playoff game against Alabama, where Ohio State was just much more physical than Alabama, and that was where you had Alabama fans complaining that Cardale Jones was too physical on his runs, and that he was cheap shotting guys.
Yeah, the quarterback is cheap shotting my safety. Okay, welcome to
classless Big Ten.
In the words of Kathy Ireland, welcome to footballs. Let's see. Next up, Jeffrey McDowell. We got a chance to talk to our buddy Bill Carollo yesterday about this. Ohio State better not be getting any phantom targeting calls this year. It would be nice if you get a holding call or 2 for the defensive line.
Did he say there were 53 targeting calls last year? I think that was roughly 53 targeting calls last year.
But only like 17 got upheld, something like that.
Yeah, I didn't understand what he was saying there.
Well, I think there were 53 where the flag got thrown, but it was only 40% of them or something like that were actually upheld and enforced as targeting. Some of them may have been enforced as late hit, but not targeting. But what he was talking about, and this is Bill Carollo, the Big Ten's director of officiating. Tony and I spend the entirety of his time at the podium with him every year because he's one of the most informative people we get a chance to talk to. He sort of was explaining that they've sort of refined the process. Everyone has a better grasp on what it is, and the officials have just gotten better at calling it. And I think earlier they were throwing flags on everything that was even close. Now you kind of are a little more, you have a better sense for what it is. So the number of targeting calls has gone down, I think, over the last few years. And in terms of holding, he talked about the fact that they track the number of penalties that they call in a given game, and that number is lower than the all-conference average across college football. And that's something that the coaches in the Big Ten like. They don't want this to be a ref show or a flag fest. They want it to be, hey, call it, keep it fair, don't completely dominate the game. They throw about 1 fewer flag than the average college football conference does. But he talked about holding, what constitutes holding. They have very specific, because, he said, people always say you can call holding on any play, and you could. The Big Ten, the way they enforce it is, you can, guys can be grabbing. You're not going to be throwing the flag every time you see a jersey stretch out a little bit. The threshold there is, did he cost him a step? So, you see the jersey stretch a little bit at the point of attack or on the edge. You could call holding, but did he cost him a step, or was it just kind of like, hey, he held him like 6 inches or whatever? That's sort of where the threshold is for them there in terms of calling holding. I wish we had thought about asking about that, but you also run the risk if you ask that question and then everyone goes, "What a bunch of home," because talking about it in the more general sense, I think you end up with a more informative answer. And so I thought that was really, really good information in terms of how. Where that line is for the Big Ten.
Yeah, like, why aren't you calling holding against Ohio State? It's like, well, the Big Ten coaches don't want many holding calls, so go talk to your own head coach about it.
Yeah. Here's one from John. Steve Miller, I bet, has told, so going back to that Sugar Bowl, Steve Miller, I bet, has told the story of his touchdown a minimum of 5,000 times and not mad about it, because that was a pick 6, right? Yeah, pick 6 for Steve Miller. That was the that was certainly one of the great moments for a defensive lineman. We've seen defensive linemen have several really memorable touchdowns. Like Haskell Garrett, I think, had a couple. He might have had an interception
Jerron Cage,
a scoop
almost?
and score. Jerron Cage did. Jerron Cage had a scoop and score against Penn State in 2021. Draymond Jones, I think, had 2. I think he might have had a scoop and score and an interception, or he had 2 interceptions in a game or something like that. So, yeah, anytime you can have a large man scoring a touchdown, I am always 2 thumbs up.
I'm 100%. Like, they are allowed to talk about that as much as they want. I remember probably 10 years ago, I was at Ohio State Pro Day, and Jonathan Wells was there, former running back from Ohio State. And I wanted to talk to him and write about like Ohio State's success at the time against Michigan. And he's like, well, you can't. And he's like, yeah, because you can't talk about the success against Michigan without talking to me. That's right. I was the guy that got this ball rolling in 2001 when he rushed for 120 some yards in the first half
and 3 touchdowns,
and then was injured in the second half. And Ohio State had to hold on. So he's like, yeah, for sure, let's talk.
Let's talk about how I definitely would have had 250 yards and 6 touchdowns if you'd played the second half, because it's just math. Yeah, that was that 4th and 1 where it was like a 40-yard touchdown on 4th and 1. I was there, and it was I had been in Michigan Stadium for the 97 game, the 99 game, and it was just like, oh, this is very different. It was 23-0 at halftime, and it was not 23-0 Michigan at halftime. That was a real
like
series
the old
changer.
days of 1988 or whatever.
That did, in terms of swinging momentum in the series, what the 2021 game did in terms of, well, maybe the 2020 game did in terms of Michigan. John Moore says over-under on, this is for Max Clare receptions. Over-under on Max Clare receptions this year.
Ooh.
Where are you? He's saying 37. 37 is a good number, because that's a little less than Cade Stover in 2022. I'm gonna go over that. I think I'm just sort of mentally trying to adjust for the number of plays, the pace of play now. You've got fewer snaps than you did in 2022. And I think Cade Stover had 41
in 12 games.
In 12 yeah, in 12
and he was
games.
banged up a little bit in some games.
I'm going over 37 for Max Clare.
That's why I like to use Cade Stover's entire season in 2022 and 2023 as the over-under everywhere for Max Clare.
Yeah.
41 catches, 576 yards, 5 touchdowns. I think I'm going over on the 5. I might go 41.
It's a lot.
It's a lot, but 37 is an easy over for me. So
yeah, I think 37 feels like an over to me. But here's the real question here. From a question about TE to a question from TE13. Over under 3.5 holding calls on opposing offensive line for the season. Tony, this is your area. This is your area of expertise.
What was the number last year? Again, that's something that obviously was very low, but it was the holding of the defensive line that wasn't happening. As opposed to the holding. Maybe there's some holding of some linebackers and things like that. That's one a month.
Yeah.
I'll go over, but not confidently. But 3 just seems low.
3 seems low, and it's one a month, and then you get an extra month. You get an extra at least 1 game, and then we'll see how much further after that. But yeah, I'll say over on that. Even
$10 bet. That's all.
Yeah, and the only thing that gives me a little hesitancy is sometimes you get those wide receiver holds on the edge, and I guess that would for this technically not count. So, all right. So Mike Schaefer with an absolute all-time avatar there, using the old dead Schembecklers from back in the day. He says no quarterback in college football and some of the pros have as many weapons as Sand/Keenholz will have this year. Expect great things. That feels like that has been true for a lot of years at Ohio State. This year, last year, I think the running backs were a little more proven last year, but that doesn't mean the running backs won't get there this year. And the wide receivers this year, I feel like we don't talk about the loss of Emeka Egbuka enough. He just is one of those like forgotten guys, because he was behind. You look at where he is in the Ohio State record books. And he might not have ever been the best wide receiver on the team, but also he's one of the greatest wide receivers in Ohio State history.
Yeah.
He just had the misfortune of, well, I'm also on the team at the same time as Marvin Harrison Jr., and then I'm also on the same team at the same time as Jeremiah Smith, and that's a hard thing. And Jackson Smith and Jigba. I mean, it's just that's pretty elite company to be in.
Imagine being Robin, right? And then Batman, Marvin Harrison retires, and Robin's like, I finally get to be Batman.
Now I don't have to be the boy Ward.
And then here comes another Batman. You're like, but I was next in line. It's like, easy, Robin.
Yeah.
Robin's still good. So I think he's an all-time great. There was nobody would talk about him as on the Mount Rushmore of Ohio State, even though he's got records. Jeremiah Smith was asked on Big Ten Network to name his Mount Rushmore of Ohio State wide receivers, and he said Chris Carter, Jackson Smith and Jigba, Marvin Harrison, and Ted Ginn Jr. And then Ted Ginn Jr. quote tweets that video, and he's like, thanks, GOAT, basically acknowledging that the best of all time is Jeremiah Smith. Mm-hmm. And then so I tweeted it out. Jack Wes Green, former Florida receiver, gave his Ohio State Mount Rushmore of receivers, and he went with David Boston, Chris Carter, Marvin Harrison, Santonio Holmes, and Joey Galloway. Now, I know Kevin thinks there should be 5 presidents on Mount Rushmore, but
he's nodding. Big Millard Fillmore fan. And then says love Terry Glenn though. And,
I mean, that's one of the most difficult positions to do the Mount Rushmore thing for Ohio State.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But I agree. Like he's got quarterback, whoever the quarterback is, has everything they need to succeed, and the offensive line too.
Yeah. Rusty Jesse says odds the NCAA announces Michigan's penalties if they're severe approximately 15 minutes before Sherrod Morris speaks in Las Vegas. So that would be a lot of the stuff for Michigan has come out right before big things. They had something that came out right before the season last year, like a week or two before the season last year, and they've had stuff that came out. But there was stuff that came out. Was it the notice of allegations came out right before signing day or something like that? Like some of the stuff has lined up. You can decide how conspiratorial you want to get in terms of what the NCAA is doing and when. I do, the one thing that I know is not a coincidence is the Tony Petitti wrote a letter supporting Michigan, that leaking the day before Big Ten Media Days. That's not a coincidence. I don't think the NCAA is going to drop it right before then. If they do, this is something that they're not coming up on a deadline. So if they do, it's an extremely intentional thing. Like it's because it was 60 to 90 days is sort of the window from the hearing in early June. So you're really not at 60 days yet. I'm expecting that sometime in August. Before the season, yes. This week, probably not. If
they were to do it tomorrow before Sherrod Morris speaks, it would basically confirm all of the Michigan fandom's suspicions about the NCAA is out to get us, and that it would all of the conspiracy theories.
What about the state of New Hampshire? Would it confirm those, or was that a separate thing?
No, well, that's all folded in. It's all part of the dossier that will eventually be released.
And when they say that private eyes are watching you, does that mean Hall & Oates are in on it?
I'm not going to say no to that. I don't know where they're from originally, but I'm just going to say Oates looks a little guilty.
It's the perm.
Can't trust
it. Mike Schaefer says, can Arch Manning burn a Caleb Downs-led secondary? I think not. I was trying to think back how Texas had a really good drive where they scored a touchdown.
Was it scripted?
No, it was. They scored one right before halftime, and I think that was a pass to Jaden Blue where that might have been Styles, like a wheel route with Sonny Styles in coverage. Both touchdowns were to a running back. Yeah, so there are ways to do it without throwing over the top. I think Ohio State's secondary is going to be very hard to throw on, and I don't know how Texas's wide receivers I think are going to be okay, but not insanely great this year. They have some, you remember Texas's wide receivers from last year, and they have a new tight end this year. I think Ohio State's going to be hard to beat over the top. So if you mean burn that way, yeah, I think that's going to be a challenge. And I think also Texas's offensive line is a little bit uncertain right now. I don't know that they're feeling like they have, 100% locked in stone. These 5 guys are going to be amazing on the offensive line, and that plays into that. Can you throw deep? That plays into that too.
Yeah, last year in that game, 11 of the 23 completions went to the running backs because they were just outlets, swinging them out, and then, of course, a couple of wheel routes as well. Ohio State locked down the receivers pretty well. So I think you're looking at a very good Ohio State secondary, very good corners. I don't expect them to throw all over the Ohio State Buckeyes. And again, I'll say it's like a 21-17 type of game is what I'm expecting.
Let's see. We just answered that one. Market X wants to know who would be more excited about sanctions against Michigan, Buckeye fans or Paul Feinbaum?
Ohio State fans. Paul Feinbaum would talk about it for a little bit, and then you got to move on to the next story.
Yeah.
Ohio State fans can just continue to talk about the sanctions, and then, of course, the Ohio State media can talk about the sanctions. Eventually, everybody's going to have to move on, but there will always be the sanctions and the stain or whatever it might be that – the asterisk or whatever. And Ohio State fans will take more joy in that than Paul Feinbaum because Feinbaum will move on and Ohio State fans don't have to.
Alex Midlish has also loved how Tony Petitti said it was customary for him to send a letter in Michigan's defense proves nothing. And that was, there was a headline that you found from when, I think Jim Delaney wrote a letter asking for basically leniency on behalf of Ohio State during Tatgate, and you saw how much good that did. So I think that it is a pretty typical thing and doesn't necessarily mean a lot.
Kind of like a nun writing a letter to a governor on the day of a death row inmate getting the chair.
This got bleak. The Maize and Blue Mile. Let's see, going through here real quick. How about this one? Shadrick Bell says, can the offensive line and play calling scheme neutralize the Longhorn defense early on in the game, mainly their speed? This is there have been questions this week about, how different is it going to be with Brian Hartline calling plays? I don't think the answer is, Ryan Day really kind of said, no, it's not going to be, you have a different guy calling plays. This is still kind of the Ryan Day offense. Tyler Bowen also is going to be a factor in this in the run game as well because he's kind of the run game coordinator and is going to have some impact in that. But I'm expecting this to kind of be the Ryan Day offense, and the Ryan Day offense, it feels like they have come up with answers for just about everything over the years. I
think we'll see some 12 personnel until they decide that they can handle Colin Simmons with just one guy, maybe their top pass rusher, the sophomore. The freshman of the year nationally last year, Colin Simmons. Best freshman in the nation last year.
Can you think of any other freshmen who were any good last year? Hey, smooth transition to Sir Eric M., who says, my daughter's apparently conditioned to respond, quote, he's pretty good, quote, every time she hears Jeremiah Smith's name because I said it so much last year. Yeah, no lies detected.
No, and probably similar people have birds that will say the same thing, that they've been conditioned to say stuff after Jeremiah Smith does stuff.
Yeah. The poor man's Colin Simmons, they're calling him. It's just me, Tim says, it's my theory is that Quinn Ewers transferred out because he had to room with Jack Sawyer. They seem to get along just fine, but I don't think Quinn Ewers enjoyed his last interaction with Jack Sawyer all that much. So, possible.
No, obviously the reason he transferred is because Ohio State took a walk-on to a road game.
Nope, we're just going to move on. It's just no. Okay, no. Just search Jagger LaRoe on Twitter and it will come up, I'm sure. Matt Reynolds says, I think this year the linebackers are just as good, if not better. Headhunters, the jury's still out on the defensive ends. Hopefully there's not a drop-off. And linebackers, Cody Simon's another guy who I think people sort of around the end of the year sort of came around on how good Cody Simon was. He wasn't someone who came in with the 5-star super mega hype kind of pedigree, but was just so good for Ohio State. He's someone who they're going to be great this year. They might even be a little more athletic this year. He's still not going to be an easy guy to replace. They shouldn't be headhunting because we talked about targeting, but they are going to be hitting with some authority. And as far as the defensive ends, one of the things that's always very telling to me at these events is the guys that people talk about unsolicited. You get have a broad question and you keep hearing the same guy's name. This year, I think the guy who won that award was Kenyatta Jackson. And Caleb Downs talked about Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry both. Both of those guys sound like, they've – Caleb Downs is not someone who's just going to be fire hosing praise around on everyone. Everyone talked about Kenyatta Jackson. Caleb Downs talked about Caden Curry as well. I think they're going to be okay at defensive end. Is it going to be Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau level production? We'll see. But I think they're going to be fine there.
Well, yeah, and Sonny Styles was talking about basically ran through all of the defensive ends, and he said Caden Curry he's always making plays when you look up, and then you got Bo Atkinson's a bigger guy like Kenyatta Jackson. They're bigger and longer. He said Kenyatta Jackson's even bigger than he was last year. In terms of Cody Simon, again, I think one of the more underrated guys of the last 10 years or so because you got to see him for 1 year as a true starter. Now he started back in 2021 a little, and then the injuries kind of sidelined him. But 112 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks. He was tied for third on the team with 7 passes broken up. Tied with Jack Sawyer, by the way, which is interesting.
Well, yeah, and we'll get what a smooth transition to John Dowd, who says dropping back a defensive down lineman remains an elite strategy. That sort of zone blitz kind of look. We talked to Ross Fulton about that on some of the scheme shows before. But that like Jack Sawyer interception where you drop Jack Sawyer out in the flat and he has that interception against Michigan. I think you're going to see a lot of creative stuff like that out of Matt Patricia. Because, as we said earlier, you have other guys. You're not necessarily going to just have, the defensive tackles will rush and you drop both. It's a 2-man rush. You can't do that. But you can bring pressure from other areas because you've got guys who can bring. You want Arvell Reese to come off the edge and drop a defensive end? Yeah, you can do that. You want to bring Sonny Styles off the edge and drop a defensive? Yeah, absolutely. You want to drop a defensive tackle? You drop Edric Houston in the middle. I mean, there's athleticism all across that defensive line. Even bigger dudes who don't look like they should be able to move, those guys can move in a hurry and do. That makes you so unpredictable, and that's what you're going for as a defensive coordinator. Here's an interesting one from Mark Williams. Who is the backup center in your opinion from what you've seen? Such an important position.
I'm going to say it's Josh Padilla at this point. He's the most experienced of the centers, and it would just be a situation of would they rather have somebody who is currently starting snap the ball as one of the top 5?
He's going to be with the 2s at center, but when you're figuring out your best 5, if Carson Hinsman goes down, who's your best 5 after that?
Luke Montgomery snapped some last year in camp. There was a point where Luke Montgomery looked like he was being groomed to be the next center because that's how much he was playing center in practice. But now he's back at guard and, of course, starting at guard, left guard most likely. So, he's got that capability. It just depends on is the number 6 guy better than Josh Padilla, and is Luke Montgomery good enough to be that center if he can? And so I still think it's Josh Padilla. They really like him. They love his leverage, his understanding of the offense and things like that. There are some who will tell you he was the second best center on the team last year as well. So he'll play.
Yep. Doug Shepard says you don't need to worry about the running backs at Ohio State as long as Coach Locke is there. The recruiting has been pretty good with Lachlan there. The development has been good. You saw, I think you saw Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins both take a significant step last year and both really improve their draft stock and also have a really, really good year on the field. I think Ohio State has something in Carlos Lachlan.
Yeah, and I'm fascinated to see what C.J. Donaldson looks like this year, who is really remarkable as a true freshman at West Virginia, a big play guy, and then the next 2 years basically averaged 5 yards a carry and just under 5 yards a carry. But what is he now as a senior, where he's in better shape and a better offense and more spread out defense where there's room for him to run? I think there's something to see there. And then Ryan Day, when you ask about, or don't even have to ask about Bo Jackson, when he starts to talk about Bo Jackson, he dials himself back a little bit, because he doesn't want to go too far. not like he did with Jeremiah Smith last year, where he would start and he'd be like, "You'll see."
Yeah,
Like he is very high on Bo Jackson. You can just tell.
Well, and that's one of those guys who jumped out to us in the times we got to watch in the spring. You can see it, and he's not going to necessarily be a day one. He's getting 15 carries against Texas kind of guy. But during the course of the season, you're going to see more and more of him. He's going to take on a bigger role throughout the year.
And then we're not even talking about James Peoples, because it's just understood and assumed at this point, just like it was in the spring game. He had 2 carries. It's like, we're fine.
Yeah, right. Yeah, you know who RB1 is this year. Matt wants to know, how much does Devin Sanchez make a difference this year?
I mean, he's the 3 or the 4 at corner, and I think he's going to. Will he play more than Aaron Scott did last year as that 4th corner? Yes, because Aaron Scott was injured for a while.
Yeah,
but also I'm interested to see if Scott or Sanchez can get into that rotation the way Jermaine Matthews did last year. Because, again, Jermaine Matthews didn't even play defense against Oregon the first time.
Yeah,
it was just Igbinosun and Denzel Burke at corner. And then after that, they're like, we need to get Jermaine Matthews on the field more. Is there going to be some point this year where they decide we need to get Devin Sanchez on the field more, or we need to get Aaron Scott on the field more? Wouldn't shock me, especially when, again, the long season. Ryan Day talked about it again yesterday.
Yeah.
Last year wasn't just a matter of, well, we just want to take these guys slowly. It's like, no, we're going to take everything slowly in terms of getting guys on the field, maybe playing a little slower. I did like how he said, I didn't want to talk about it last year, like before the season, they were going to do this, because I didn't want to, instead, I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but it's like, you talk about, like, Brian, you guys only had 62 plays. Like, I know, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
The way of the game right now, it's tough, And meanwhile, it's like, that was the plan.
Yes. Secretly doing the Jack Nicholson nod from the Departed gif. Yeah. Doug wants to know, this is sort of a transition from the Sanchez question. What do you think the chances are Ohio State rotates more in the defensive backfield, and then the rotation of offensive linemen? Is it 50-50, 60-40? I mean, it feels like they have a sense for their top 5 right now, right? I mean, on the offensive line?
Oh, yeah.
So I don't know that you're going to see as much of the offensive line rotation as you did during the playoff last year.
And you don't need to rotate them, because the guys that were rotating are now also starting.
Yeah, they all kind of have their spots.
You'll have Ethan Onionwa and Austin Searveld will be your two tackles.
Mm-hmm.
And then Luke Montgomery, who was rotating it last year, is going to be your left guard. Mm-hmm. Carson Hinsman is your center. Tegra Shabola, who was rotating with Searveld and Montgomery, is your right guard. So now the question is, they like what they did last year in terms of rotating. Can somebody get in there and rotate this year? Can Ian Moore? But he's a tackle.
He's a tackle.
Is it better to do the interior?
Yeah.
Is it just a guard only thing? You don't want to rotate the center.
Yeah.
So is it a guard only thing? And if so, there's no Austin Searveld or basically like pushing their way at guard into the lineup right now. So I don't know that there's going to be a rotation this year.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see how stuff goes during fall camp, because we know where things were at the end of the spring, and we had not, there was 45 minutes with Ryan Day, and so much of the time got chewed up on NIL stuff and college football playoff stuff and big picture stuff that you didn't have the real nitty gritty kind of, hey, let's talk about the backup offensive line kind of questions. Like, this is generally a place where you get to do a lot of that stuff. So those will kind of be fall camp kind of interview questions at this point. So we don't have as much on how much of those guys improved since the spring, but we'll know more when they do Iron Buckeyes. Are there one of those guys? Like, one of the big tells in the spring was Austin Searveld was an Iron Buckeye coming out of the winter. It was like, okay, well, very clearly he's going to have a role this year. That's what that means. That's what they're telling you. So we'll
and we weren't talking about Austin Searveld at this point last year.
No,
and it wasn't until camp when he's like running with the 1s and 2s. You're like, well, I guess we got to talk about him now.
Yeah. Well,
it's probably just because of the sickness,
right?
The nasty bug. But
yeah. It just stuff will change. Stuff is in the process of changing over the summer, and then will change probably again.
And in terms of the defensive backfield, I do think you're going to have some stuff going on with Malik Hartford and Jalen McClain, because they obviously love both those guys, but one of them's not just going to sit. They both have started games as true freshmen, so they're both advanced and mature. I'm fascinated to see how they do it.
Yeah. Thank you to Sir Eric M., new member of the channel. If you want to become a member of our channel, you can do that. Just go to youtube.com/Buckeye Huddle. You can join, get some fun benefits from that. I don't think it's particularly much, but we appreciate it. It's a nice way to support us and with the work that we do. We'll finish with that one. Woody says Max Clare could be a first rounder if defensive key to Jeremiah Smith. I think Max Clare could be a first rounder no matter what. I mean, you look at Colston Loveland was a first rounder from Michigan last year.
He didn't even play.
Well, he was banged up, but I look at what Colston Loveland did at Michigan, and that doesn't seem like an outrageous. I don't know about the numbers, but what he was able to do and what he was able to be for their offense, that doesn't seem like an outrageous possibility for what Max Clare could be for the Ohio State offense this year.
I mean, Loveland, 56 catches in 10 games last year. He had like 45 and 15 the year before. He's always been their best. He's such an effective receiver, and I think there's a lot to compare Clare and Colston Loveland. And you'll see Max Clare popping up on mock drafts, even though he's still just a fourth-year junior. Ohio State would love to have him for 2 years. I know that. So maybe just keep him under wraps. Only throw him the ball a couple times a game this year, and then that way you don't lose him for next year.
And just hope the NFL teams aren't reading the mock drafts. Like, who's this? Clare? Market X says, Texas beat reporters tell me that Ryan Wingo is just as good, if not better, than Jeremiah Smith.
I mean,
stuff, brackets. It's easy to say.
He was another one of those 5-star guys in that class. Yeah. Here's the thing, because there's another Wingo that committed somewhere. Tom, in their heyday.
Trey Wingo?
All of the Wingos versus all of the Rolls. Like, which family are you taking? I'm taking the Rolls because the Wingos, they're well known in terms of recruiting, but the production hasn't necessarily been there.
Yeah.
All of the Rolls basically good.
Are we including Myron Roll on that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Samari, Antrell, Brian Roll in there.
Yeah.
Take the Rolls.
Yes, for sure.
Always.
All right.
Texas Roadhouse, take the Rolls.
Last one for today. We'll wrap it up on this. TE13. Which coach or player are you most interested to ask a question to today? I have said this before. I think James Franklin is fantastic at these events. I spent the full 45 minutes with Brett Bielema yesterday, and there's a bunch of questions about Illinois' offensive line. He's high on Illinois' offensive line. They've got all 5 starters back. They should be very good this year, but there's a bunch of crap that I don't care about at all. But if people are asking questions, you get a very honest answer from him, and there's not the super cautious approach to things that you get from some people. James Franklin is someone who you're going to get an honest answer out of James Franklin on a lot of stuff. So he is probably at the top of the list for me today. I'm interested to hear from Luke Fickell. I'm
They're at the same time though.
Ugh. Why did they do this to me? Is it a personal thing? Yes, it is a personal attack on me. I'm interested to talk to Luke Fickell. I was just hoping to ask him about, you played for John Cooper, you coached under Jim Tressel, you coached under Urban Meyer, and you were a head coach at Ohio State yourself. What did you take from each of those individual guys and incorporate into, including your time as Ohio State's head coach, that you've incorporated into your sort of approach to things as a head coach? That's what I would be interested to ask Luke Fickell today. James Franklin, a lot more. I mean, there's some big picture college football stuff. I'll be interested in his thoughts on the playoff, thoughts on NIL and their approach to NIL, but also, it's last year Ohio State was talking about natty or bust, and Sonny Styles said, he was asked about Penn State, and he said, this may be their kind of version of a natty or bust season. I'm interested in, I don't know if I want to ask that question because that's one of those things that's like, but if someone asked that question, I'd be interested in his answer on that.
Here's maybe a way that I would ask it, because there'll be 2 coaches today where I'm there for the entire 45 minutes, and it's Lanning and it's James Franklin. But like asking James Franklin or the Penn State players, the rest of the Big Ten is talking about you. Mm-hmm. And you can frame it that way, because when you've got Ohio State talking about you as the natty or bust, I think that's significant that other players and programs they know that that's out there, that the expectations are for Penn State to win it. I don't know what the question is. Do you like that? Is that more, not that it's more pressure, there's already enough pressure, but
As long as you start the question with talk about, it is an official media days question.
Yeah, there you go. So we have officially defeated all of you as the viewers with all of your questions. We do thank you for all of them. We always do. We appreciate it. And of course, go ahead. If you have not yet, hit the thumbs up. We appreciate that as well. And you can always find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. Thank you all for tuning in. We will be back, Tom, in about
8 p.m. Eastern. So about I can do
8
math.
hours.
I can do math. About a little under 8 hours. We'll be back and probably do another hour or so tonight. So put that in your calendars. Save the date. I will try and get you a little more advance notice. Sorry, I was doing some other stuff this morning and just went, oh yeah, we're doing a live show in 5 minutes. Oops, sorry.
So thank you all for tuning in. We will talk to you guys later.